So hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to this second edition of the AsyncAPI conference on tour in Madrid. And thanks, Singular, for helping organizing it, and to all the, all the community members who are actually making it happen. So I will ask for a big round of applause to these community members and these people making it happen, please. All right, so let's start with a little bit of a story, and history as well. Does everybody know here what is this? San Francisco, correct? You're right? Yeah, Salesforce Tower. So today is not today. Today is 15th of October of 2018. Okay, so it's actually like almost exactly 5 years ago. So I'm there. I'm there in the top of that tower, on the freaking top, let's say that way. They paid for my trip. They paid for the whole trip in a, with a business class, 5-star hotel and everything. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go there. So I'm there. Just to put it in context, I was a developer at New Relic at the time. Developer struggling to get to team lead. Just so you see, just so you get an idea. And I was there, and they were offering me to become a director of engineering at MuleSoft, at Salesforce. Right? So I'm from Badajoz, so those who are from Badajoz now and Extremadura, they know what I mean. So it's like, what the hell am I doing here? And why do you want me, what the hell is happening? Can you please explain me, right? So yeah. Let me tell you this story a little bit relaxed, let's say in a relaxed way, because let's get back to a few years before, right? This is previously to working at New Relic. I was working at Hitch. I don't know if maybe some of you heard about this startup. It was a startup for a year and a half, more or less. And I was working there with Bruno Pedro and many other folks as well. It was also called at some point API changelog, but we changed it to Hitch. So, well, in short, and I don't want to extend so much on this, but just to put it in context, we had a microservices architecture at Hitch because it was an API changelog, so it was about events, like changes that people were doing to their APIs, right? So it was about events. So it was an event-driven architecture, let's say microservices-based, event-based architecture on microservices. So it made, let's say, total sense to have that. We had RabbitMQ at the time, no Kafka or anything like that. And yeah, so it made total sense to create something for us. We were an OpenAPI first company, so we were offering a product on top of OpenAPI. So we were recommending our potential customers. We were a startup, so we didn't have customers yet. The thing is that we were let's say, recommending our customers to use OpenAPI and be OpenAPI first. So they define the OpenAPI document and everything, and from there they operate and so on. But we couldn't do it ourselves because there was nothing like OpenAPI but for RabbitMQ, right? So we couldn't do it. So this crazy guy here one day went to speak at the Nordic APIs conference in Stockholm. And I was like this, way different than now, because now I feel in between friends. But I was shaking. And the reason is that I tried to learn the whole presentation as a movie, what's it called? script, as a movie script, word by word. I always failed history at school because I didn't remember dates. And I was trying to remember the whole presentation, word by word. Sure, Fran, you're going to do it. So in the end, what happened is that, as usual, I had to improvise. But freaking nervous because I wanted to do it like the way it was supposed to do, right? The thing is that in this conference, I got to speak to many people. And I kind of validated the idea with other people that they were not having the same problem, but they were like, yeah, sounds interesting. So I went through the whole OpenAPI specification, I think like 4 or 5 times, from top to bottom. I don't recommend it. I mean, they did a great job, but it's like reading a whole specification it's a pain. It's the AsyncAPI 1 as well, not same because of OpenAPI. And then at some point, I started changing paragraphs here and there, changing things here and there, just to adapt it to what I needed. But that was just a document, right? Like that doesn't have any functionality. So I started also building some documentation generators, code generators, and so on. So yeah, at that time, and I still do it actually, every time I do something, I do it open source by default. Unless there's a huge reason why not to do it, right? Like the company is paying me to keep it private, for instance. So, so yeah, I never use, I have this kind of like a personal policy of not using any external drives for anything. Like I just save it. Whatever I do, I save it on GitHub. And if there's no reason for keeping it private, it's always public, basically. And so yeah, I created, I was going to put it on my GitHub, but then I decided like, let's create a AsyncAPI organization on GitHub, because I'm feeling like, yeah, this is gonna be cool, right? Like, yeah, I validated it in Stockholm, like everybody's gonna contribute, right? And yeah, and I'm also gonna open a Slack workspace, because yeah, I'm gonna get a lot of contributors, and we're gonna make it happen. This silence, complete silence, every day, opening Slack and telling people, actually, you can check it because now we have a full history, and telling people what I was doing. I'm doing this, now I added this to AsyncAPI, now I added that. I think this is cool, and the funny part is that the majority of the people there were people from my company, right? So they already knew at the time what I was doing before I posted it on Slack. So they were anyway like, who cares? We're not going to post it here. We're not going to chat with you in Slack, Fran, because we already have the company Slack, and you already told us, and in person as well. So yeah, I was speaking alone. Like we say in Spanish, it's like speaking to the wall, right? It's like I was basically speaking to no one, right? Or so I thought. One day, I get this mention on Twitter from my friend Nico, and I say I got this mention because, as you can see there, it says AsyncAPI. It doesn't say Fran or FM Villas like my account, right? And I'm saying this because AsyncAPI was my account at that time. Like there was no one else there, so it was me, basically. So I got to mention, he's on the Spec by Slack conference. It's a conference that Slack is organizing, or was organizing every year. It was a huge one in San Francisco. And he sent me this picture. Like, dude, your project is on stage. New AsyncAPI spec for Events API. Slack is using AsyncAPI. And I was like, dude, this is amazing, right? This is awesome. And at the same time, I was like, fucking bastards. like, I was like, I've been speaking along here, for what, a year or more, thinking I was alone, and they were using AsyncAPI, and nobody told me. Nobody spoke a single word saying, hey, Frank, we're using it, just so you know. Nobody, ever. Yeah. So yeah, the thing is that, well, to me, that was like another stage. It's a different stage in the history of AsyncAPI, and it's basically, the first thought that came to my mind was, oh my God, like, I now have to review everything that I've done. Because I was working alone, so I was working like nobody's watching, so I was just pushing shitty code, shitty stuff, like, this is just for me, whip, 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 right? Work in progress all the time, and huge commits, and a commit every 5 minutes with unfinished stuff. No pull requests, obviously, push to master. Like, who's gonna review it? Am I gonna approve myself? No, master directly. So yeah, and that was a whole mess. Like, it's like, I knew there were lots of things that were not complete or of good quality, let's say. Like, they didn't have good quality. So I was like damn, like I gotta like, I have to fix this. I have to, I have to solve that problem with the language there. I have to solve that problem because it's incomplete. The tool is not working as it's supposed, as is the spec. I have to, I have to. And I collapsed, basically. I collapsed. So, actually, I said that I collapsed, and I didn't literally collapse. I didn't collapse to the floor, but I could have been possible. But this is, by the way, this is the only word in the whole presentation. First time. So that was exactly what happened to me at the time, and that's something that happened to many of you, and we don't speak aloud about this. I burned out. Like, it was too much for me already. It was a lot, right, to handle. And yes, I was excited that Slack was using it, but at the same time, I was like, it's disappointing. I'm working for free for a big corporation, right? And they're not contributing back. This is disappointing. So just so you get a sense of what was happening is, I used to work in Barcelona and live in Sitges. Sitges is a small village in the south of Barcelona, like 1 hour by train. So I was going every day to Barcelona by train and working on my laptop on the train, because that was the only time that I had to work on AsyncAPI, because the rest of the time I had to work on the company, right, on the company stuff, on New Relic. And back home, I was working on weekends, on afternoons, until late. Eva, my wife, was like about to kill me, and with a very good reason, but yeah. The only thing that I had as escape was to play volleyball. And don't get me wrong, I suck big time at volleyball, but that was relaxing to play on the beach, and then be able to enjoy the beach there. It was, by the way, it was summer, right? When it happened, it was summer of the 2018, I think it was, yeah. So yeah, thing is that at some point during this summer, I started having some conversations with some community members. So finally, we get some community members on Slack, right? And on GitHub as well from time to time. And people speaking. Sorry. So these people, just let's say, they came to my Slack, and I feel it like that. Not anymore, but at the time I feel it like it was my Slack, right? They came to my Slack at that point, super interested about AsyncAPI. Actually, 2 Spanish guys working in San Francisco. And they were like super pumped about it. And at some point, I got an offer, an offer to travel to San Francisco, right? So, so yeah, as you can imagine, is this picture that you saw before. So the company was Salesforce, MuleSoft, acquired by Salesforce. That's why they were there. And they wanted me to travel and meet them. And I was like, why not a video call? Like, like, isn't it the same? Like, just like we can have a chat in a video call, and that would be more than enough, right? Like, no, we want you here. We want you here. We want you to come here and discuss things here with the CTO and the CEO and so on. And I was like, CTO? You said CTO and CEO of a big corporation? I'm a developer, don't forget. So, from Badajoz. So, it's like, what am I supposed to do there? So yeah. I got a formal email from the company saying they want to invest in AsyncAPI. They don't want calls. They want me there. So I had to ask my manager, which, by the way, I got married at that, in that summer. So I had lots of holidays already taken because of my wedding. So I had to ask my manager, like, you know what? I asked for 2 weeks here, but I'm going to remove part of my holiday. So during the holidays, I called my manager and say, please reduce the holidays. So I'm getting back sooner as expected. And let me do another 1 week. I think it was in October. Yeah, I said it actually, in October. So let me take 1 more week in October. And he said, like, yeah, it's just fine. I actually explained him what was happening. And he was like, fuck yeah, like, you're going to take these holidays, like, no matter what. So yeah, he was very supportive. And so yeah. And that's how it happened. That's how I got there on the Salesforce tower. So as I said, everything was paired. I reinforced this a lot, like everything was paired, because at that time to me it was like, I find it super exciting and incredible to me that someone is paying the trip to San Francisco to me. Not to mention business and 5 stars hotel, right? Like, this is like, I was still like, now that I'm more in this director position and so on, it's like, okay, you see it more often and so on. But at that time to me, it was like incredible. And it's not my company, it's another company, right? So yeah, if it's your company, that's understandable. So yeah, so what do they want? Like, I was wondering, like, what the hell do they want from me? Like, why are they so friendly? Like, they don't know me, right? They just, for a few messages in Slack, like, I don't know if this will happen to you as well, but my instinct will immediately tell me to not trust them. Because there's, like, they want something back, and they're not telling me. They want to tell me there. So I don't even know how to translate this to English. We say envolvente in Spanish. It's like something surrounding you. Like they're trying to make this strategy to surround you, to make you feel like, oh, it's super good, super soft, everything is good, everything is nice. But at the end, it has a price, right? So yeah, I was feeling that. I was seeing it coming, but I couldn't see what. Right? So I was like, what do they want? Well, they wanted everything. They wanted everything, the whole project, the tools, the spec, all the things that I've done. So yeah, once again, what the hell is happening? Like, why do they want everything, right? I was super surprised about it. So, and by the way, I like to put this picture, I forgot to mention, because these are the views from the top of the tower. I spend most of my time there, having informal meetings with the CTO and so on. So, looking at these views, and free everything, free food, free coffee, free everything, right? Free tour around the city as well, free everything. I was so super overwhelmed. And yeah, so it was a little bit like overwhelming, I would say. Free dinners with them, with the CEO, CTO, and so on, and they made this offer, right? They want me to become director of engineering at MuleSoft. And they want me to form a team of whatever, 10 people, 20 people, whatever I needed, right? San Francisco salary. I was a developer. I want to reinforce this. Struggling to get to lead developer. So you offer me director of engineering with a San Francisco salary. I could get back to Badajoz and basically buy Badajoz. So, not buy it, but yeah, and feel like you are the king there, right? I rejected it. I rejected the offer, right? So they offered me a bunch of money and the perfect offer, right? And I rejected it, and I cried it. I cried a lot. Actually, so I suffer from Crohn's disease. It's an inflammatory disease of the bowel, right? So when I get nervous, I have to go to the toilet, right? I actually like to say this because I want to make it visible, make this disease visible, because it's affecting a lot of people and they're not speaking about it. So yeah. But the reality is that after those 3 days of meetings, and the last meeting was fucking stressful, I went to the toilet and I cried like a child. Like, with this amount of money, Eva is my wife, Eva and I could have lived like perfectly. You know, like, it's a lot of money. Like, solved, problem solved. That's it. It was worth it already. But the problem is that, you know, I didn't like the offer, and you probably wonder why, right? And the offer is that, as I was coming from the experience with OpenAPI, and OpenAPI is highly, OpenAPI and RAML as well, so these are specifications for HTTP APIs, for REST APIs. And RAML, which is created by MuleSoft, basically lost the battle against AsyncAPI, against OpenAPI. Because it was a proprietary format, open source, but still, this is open source, not open open governance. So it was basically maintained by them, and they decide what was going into RAML. And OpenAPI, formerly known as Swagger, was becoming part of Linux Foundation and an effort of multiple companies and every company. So yeah, of course, they lost the battle. And they wanted to do the same thing with AsyncAPI, the same thing with RAML, as they did with RAML. So yeah, so AsyncAPI is good. I mean, it was about time that someone else will create something like AsyncAPI and put it open governance and Linux Foundation or somewhere else, and we will lose the battle again and repeat the same mistakes, right? And on top of that, like, I had always this vision of making it community-driven and create a community around it. And to me, it was like super important to get money from the companies, but I always found super unfair that just because you're paying some money that is nothing for you, because it's no money for you, it's like you giving €1, you get to vote and decide the future of the project. That's highly unfair to me, and I didn't like that, right? So, not to mention if there's going to be just one company ruling it all, right? That's like freaking insane, right? So we thought, actually, at that point already with Lucas getting involved in the project, like, we thought, like, we should be giving priority to the contributors, right? So if you could, the way you get to decide the future of the project is by contributing. If you don't contribute, it's not your project. We're thankful for the money that you can give us, that you can donate to us. Of course, because then we can use it to give it back to the community. But you should not have the right to decide on the project and to vote on anything just because you're giving us money. Because or let's put it other way, then you have to pay way, way more, right? Millions, probably, of dollars, which is probably not worth it anymore for you, right? So yeah. On top of that as well, something Lucas and I discussed at the time was, like, we want to have, like, radical transparency as well. Like, we actually came up with this term, like, I think it was King Lane who came up with this term and said, like, I guess a term I actually like it, I love it. And it's exactly what it says. It's radical transparency. So whatever we do needs to be transparent. No decisions or meetings. Everything needs to be documented as much as possible, of course. And we don't always honored this, so we need to get better. But we try to be as transparent and as fair as possible, right? So, and of course, let's not forget about it needs to be open governance. People get their mouth like full speaking about open source. We contribute to open source. But most of them don't actually mention that it's not open governance. It's open source just because they're sharing the code. They're sharing the resources, whatever, markdown, code, whatever. But to me, that's not open source. To me, with this, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get free developers. That's what you're trying to do. So you're trying to get people who develop stuff for you for free, so you don't have to pay them. That's why you open source again. And because it's not that key for your business after all. So yeah, let's put it open, and let's leave these developers to help us develop it, right? But whatever we decide, of course, not whatever they want. So we created this issue, you implement it, thanks for your work. Here's your avatar. You're a contributor now, yay. But you don't decide any shit. We decided, right? That's not open source. So it needs to be open governance, and we need to say it more often, right? So yeah. So the thing is that we made it happen. We made it, I mean, look at it right now, right? We made it happen. We donated the project to Linux Foundation in February 2021. In October 2020, actually, like right after the pandemic or the pandemic, we joined Postman to work full time on AsyncAPI. And the most important thing to me, at least, to mention here, I got the offer from MuleSoft, but from Postman, but without that part of we own it. You live it, you manage it. You can donate it to Linux Foundation and do whatever you want. You keep it open. We don't want it. We just want you to work on it. We just want you to make it happen. Of course, because it's also useful for Postman. If we manage to create, if we manage to make AsyncAPI succeed and event-driven architectures, then there will be an open market for Postman to make money, right, as well. So it's not an NGO, right? So Postman is not an NGO. It's an investment in the long term, right? That's what they're doing. So, and we were super thankful about it. And I managed to have a team of 10 people, right? Exactly the promised in San Francisco by MuleSoft, but without strings attached. So much strings attached, or so free of attachment, let's say, that if we wanted to quit Postman right now and continue on AsyncAPI, they can't do nothing. Postman owns nothing. So they are really investing in the project because they believe in it. That's it. With the risk that we can now leave and continue another company, right, and continue AsyncAPI. And they have no right to stop us. So to me, it's an insane investment by Postman, and we're super thankful, actually. So yeah. So on February 2021, when we joined Linux Foundation, I think in a year, more or less, the technical steering committee recently formed surpassed the 40 members. So we were already, let's say, a community, big community. Technical steering committee means they can vote. So power is spread. Sorry. The power is spread among the people, among the community, and it's not on me anymore. Actually, I donated the project, so I'm not the one taking the decisions anymore, or not alone, right? And I was, but the only thing is that I was the director, right? The executive director of AsyncAPI, right? But another guy, another guy, it's like the Beauty and the Beast, right? It's kind of like this, right? Kind of like the two versions, right? Another guy took over because, yeah, like it's really easy to, again, fill your mouth with beautiful words, but at the end, it's Fran holding all the power, right? Which actually, there's no power in the executive director, not so much. So yeah. So to demonstrate to the community that we want this to be truly community-driven, I like the comment by Tuli, another guy. Exactly. So to actually demonstrate the community that we really believe in this distributed governance and open governance, it was like, all right, so I passed the torch to Lucas so he can deal with the problems now, basically. And he's now looking how to get rid of the torch, by the way. So yeah, which is smart. And by the way, he was already like, for the last year or so of me being the director, he was actually the director in practice. Like he was doing everything. We just didn't change the title. We didn't move the title, but he was doing everything already. So I was like, yeah, it's not fair for him either. So you are actually the director. You're doing it all. So yeah. So to summarize, because I guess we're going to run out of time soon, if not already, I would love to give you some takeaways that I take from this whole journey, because it's such a journey, right? I will say is that know your value is my first takeaway. Know your value, because at the time I was trying to negotiate there on the Salesforce Tower, I had some panic moments, like, why are they offering so much money to me if this is something that they could just copy and paste, right? It's open source. They can copy and paste and continue themselves and so on. I was not giving it enough value, clearly. So know your value and the value of the things that you're creating. It's probably more valuable than you know, because you're probably missing some part of the big picture, usually business big picture, that we're so much into code that we forget about the business part. And if a company comes to you like this, it's probably because there's a lot of money involved behind it. So yeah, know your value. Second takeaway is that always put people before the money. I think this one's clear. And I mean, money and fame and all these things. And I think you can all see it. Like Cynthia, for instance, she just gave this inspiring talk today, fighting her journey on the uncertainties in her journey as a contributor. To me, that is more valuable. Whenever all of this ends and finishes, it's done. If I look back, yeah, of course, if I got some money, if I'm not poor, let's say, I will be thankful, right? So I can at least make a living, right? But if I look back, the things that I will remember will not be the money, will be the people, right? So, and the stories and all these things, right? So yeah. And the last one, to me, that open source is clearly capable of saving lives. And we, let's say, we did it, or we tried it. We managed to take 2 folks from our community, actually from the open source community. One of them was contributing, the other one wasn't, but yeah, we're not gonna leave them out just because of this. So we managed to take 2 guys and their families from Afghanistan when the Taliban took over. And that to me is beautiful. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy collaborating with AsyncAPI, enjoy the event here, and I hope you enjoy the future of AsyncAPI as well. And gracias. So yeah. Is there time for questions? I don't know. I'm not tracking the time, so. So a quick thing is that it's the first time I prepared a talk with cards. And it's the second time I do this talk. First time was in Spanish and now in English. But I have everything here, like the mood that I have to be like. I have to be like relaxed or nervous and all this stuff, like the slide that will be in the screen and the last sentence and everything, right? It's in Spanish, but yeah. And even though it's like this, in the last one, I have nothing about the mood or anything like that. Like it's just the 3 takeaways. And I promise myself always like, don't get emotional with the last takeaway, but that's impossible. So yeah, sorry for that. So thanks. Questions? Yeah.
The question I have is about deciding between, I would say, your head, the logical sense, because logically, I would imagine that you want to take the money.
Yes.
And your heart, which is emotionally, I love this product, I don't want to just give it out. Or I don't want someone to take over it. I would imagine that that would be a fight between your logical mind and your heart.
Yeah.
Ultimately, how did you reach a decision between this your logical brain and your, I would say, your intuition or your heart?
So I didn't understand the question then. I thought you were affirming.
The question is, ultimately, how did you reach the decision to go with your heart? Like, how did you balance the decision to go with your heart, not your mind?
It was a really tough one. And I thought about this because I was seeing it happening more or less before the trip to San Francisco. Thankfully also because Lucas was moving the project inside AsyncAPI, and I got an AsyncAPI director, I think, to talk to me in Barcelona before the trip to San Francisco. So I got a signal that there could be more companies interested in this, so that there was a real possibility of making it something bigger, right? So, but that was just, I think, like the day or 2 days before the trip. So I wasn't really convinced of what to do. I actually decided on these 3 days, and it could have failed miserably. Like imagine that I decide to do this that I did, and it doesn't succeed, and they create another one, and they fulfill it. They put a lot of money on it, on marketing, on everything, and developers and so on. We might have failed. I might have failed miserably, right? So. But again, the way I decided it actually was through a lot of calls with folks and my wife as well in the hotel during these 3 days. So I knew that I shouldn't give an answer while I was in San Francisco. So I knew what I had to do because some folks told me, don't give them an answer. Come back to Barcelona. And in San Francisco, tell them, I'll give you an answer late, another day, not today, right? So come back to Barcelona so you have more time to think about it, right? And you put some pressure on them as well. so yeah, they're inviting you to all these things, to all these wonderful things, because they want you to be impressed. They're trying to impress you, right? So it's just so you say yes immediately, right? So yeah. But I didn't listen so much. And on the last day, I said, like, no, that's not the way I want to do it. The way I want to do it is it's open. It's open. It needs to become a standard. Because, yeah, I already have SAP speaking about it, which in the end was not, it's not a sponsor anymore, at least. But they donated a big part of the code, actually. And yeah, so basically, I will say like the way I decided was by listening to others who were outside the thing, right? Which is usually helpful. So yeah. And also, I must remark that I was in a privileged position as well. Like, I had a job. It was a well-paid job. I was not going to get rich or anything like that, but I could live well in Barcelona. And that was, let's say, enough for me. I have no intentions to get rich, right? So I never liked it. I never liked to pursue that goal. So, because to me, having so much money is also a problem as not having money. It's a different kind of problem, but still a problem. So I prefer to live simply, let's say, and not have much dependency on the money, right? So yeah, but I was a little bit privileged. If I were poor at the time, probably I will be accepting, right? So so I need to remark that as well. So yeah, let's count with this. It's important. It's an important detail. So yeah, if my family were starving, I'll probably have said, "Fuck open source." Obviously, it's my family, so, but that was not the case. So. The name. The name is such a terrible name. AsyncAPI. Yeah, I mean, it was a nice name for what I wanted to create in the beginning, but now it's not just for asynchronous API, it's also for synchronous APIs. And then it's going to be confusing. But yeah, more, let's say, other than stupid details like this, it's probably the way I manage my own time. Especially once I started working on Postman. Or not on Postman, but working, let's say, full-time on AsyncAPI. Like I got burned out multiple times because I kept thinking that I had to be everywhere. Because it's my project, so I cannot leave them alone, right? I had to follow. I have to be there supporting them. That's a big mistake. So yeah, if it were like Luca said before, like if it were like a pair of libraries maybe, okay, you can be there. But it's a huge project, so you cannot be everywhere. And actually, you should not be everywhere. It's highly recommendable that you are not everywhere. Because then because of my position as the creator of the project, I'm always going to have like a special voice to the rest. And that's not fair. You need to let people do the stuff themselves. And basically because they are much better than you at what they're doing. So you need to trust people. So yeah, I had the idea and I started it, but that's it. Nothing else. I'm not an expert or anything like that. So you need to trust the expert, basically. So yeah, that's what I will have changed. Got another one there. Where do we see in 5 years? Okay. In prison? I don't know. I mean, project-wise, I see the project like becoming even more adopted, hopefully taking over OpenAPI. So I'm not hiding it. I think the way OpenAPI is being managed right now it's not fair for the community, for their community. So we want to also, with version 3 actually, it's the starting point. We're going to be supporting REST APIs slowly as well, so synchronous APIs, right? So eventually you should be able to use AsyncAPI for a REST API as well. So yeah. But even if you continue with OpenAPI, I think there are more API styles like GraphQL, gRPC, and so on. So we need to integrate better with them. We need to, because no one is doing asynchronous APIs alone. No one, literally. Like you always have a REST API or a GraphQL API together with Kafka or with RabbitMQ or whatever. But you're doing usually multiple styles. And it's a pain to have to be switching from specs and tools just because, you know what, this is AsyncAPI, it's only for this. This is just for GraphQL, it's only for that. So we need to be integrating more with existing APIs, API styles and tooling to making it happen, to make it happen, to integrate everything as a single thing. That's my goal, let's say, or the goal that I set for AsyncAPI, which actually needs to be reviewed and revisited, right? But yeah, and hopefully in 5 years from now, none of us here is, let's say, working so much in the project, hopefully. I hope that I don't have to be working on AsyncAPI in 5 years from now. Because that will mean, I mean, that could mean many things, but I hope it's because the community is so big, it's so active, that they took over, and so we don't need to be there anymore, right? So it's a refresh, right? You keep refreshing the community so it's alive. So it keeps moving, it keeps evolving. And that will be, to me, that will be the ideal, that we, not just me, that especially the folks at Postman, right? That we might be there working, but not in a first row, in the front row, right? Will be more like a supportive way, maybe, for the rest of the community, hopefully. Ideally. Most probably is that it will not happen. Because, yeah, we know open source is slow, right? So yeah. Any more questions? Enja.
On my side, what you said about start supporting REST APIs is really interesting. So if someone here is interested in getting involved on the work, what should be doing? Who should be reaching out?
So join Slack. First of all, I will say it's the simplest way to get there. Join the contributing channel on Slack. It's also the first way. If you don't remember which channel is it after watching this talk, then just go there and ask anywhere, right? People will be friendly to point you to the right direction. And we have many people there. There's Ace, there's Lucas, there's also people who are not working full time that will be glad to help you and how to contribute this. It's mostly I would say it's equally, I would say, a spec job. We need to keep evolving the spec, plus tools as well. So where do you start? Start asking. Because that's going to depend on a lot of things. Like if you like a programming language of another, if you have more interest in creating a code generator or working with React or working in documentation. So that really depends. So start asking, and then we will be able to help you better where to go next. Because it really depends on a lot of things. So yeah. All right. Any more questions? No? So, thank you. And enjoying Benjamin now. So, looks like an interesting one, by the way.